Welcome back to another episode of Make a Living. So excited today. I have two of my best friends on from college who are both in med school currently, and they're graduating this spring to then start their residency and ultimately become practicing doctors in the world. I guess technically they'll be practicing doctors during their residency. They get their MD title come this spring when they graduate med school. So I'm really excited to have them on, not only because it's such a cool and impressive career path, but also because both of them did not know this was going to be the path they went on when they went into undergrad or when they graduated undergrad, frankly. And they both sort of wrestled with kind of deciding that this was the path they wanted to go down. And ultimately, they're both super happy with their decisions. And I think it's a really good example of like just looking fear in the eye and saying, I'm going to do it. Please follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and also on Instagram, Make a Living Pod. I'd love for you to share the episodes with any friends or family. And also, please give me any feedback. I would love to hear it as I work to make this podcast better and better for the listeners. So, Cristina and Julia, welcome to the Make a Living podcast. It's our first three-way.
Okay.
You are both on your own journey, different paths, but you happen to have a similar timeline of the path that you're on, and your ultimate end career will be the same as a MD doctor. So let's get into it. So Christina and Julia are two of my best friends from college, and we all went to Bates together in Maine, which is a small liberal arts school. Well, I guess I'll just kick off first say the two of these girls are also like 31, 32, 31 years old, and they are in med school now. So I'm taking it back a step, but that is where they are now, and they will soon become doctors. And so we all went to Bates, and they both studied psychology. And post Bates, both of you two went into research assistants jobs. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah. We were at
So
different
I
I was at
guess
Dana-Farber and Julia was at Mass General, but same job.
cool. In Massachusetts. And I'm realizing I did do one 3-person podcast before. So Shreya and Mike, if you're listening, I apologize for just forgetting that. Because I'm like remembering now as I'm like asking who to go, like I need to divvy it up. So Christina, coming out of Bates as a psych major, what made you decide to go work at a hospital as a research assistant?
Yeah, so studied psych, loved it. I just thought like learning about psych was so interesting. And I think at Bates at the time I thought I was going to be a therapist or like some sort of psychologist, but I loved it when I was studying it. And I feel like what made me pivot was more like end of junior year, senior year. I did a summer internship before senior year at Dana-Farber actually, but it was more like I was working at the survivors clinic. So it was more, I would say, geared to like psych type research, but I actually had access to the clinic and seeing patients. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I think during this class, Jules, I took a class called medical psychology senior year with Sue Langdon. Incredible.
Shout out
And
to
I just
Sue.
felt like
Shout out to Sue.
that, yeah, so cool. And I feel like I took a neuropsych class too. So it was like a little bit more geared into that, like, I don't know, like bridge between psych and like medical things. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like maybe I don't want to be a therapist. So I feel like cue the life crisis, end of senior year, unsure what I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a job as a research coordinator. I'll be in the hospital, be able to see, like have more access to patients and like see what that world is like and try to figure it out. So that's kind of how I ended up in that job.
Awesome. And maybe every woman feels this way, but at least us three and our friend group at Bates and like who we surround ourselves up with are super like we love women, feminism, women's health. We're so passionate about that. And I know for myself, like if you told me like what would my dream job be if I could do anything tomorrow, there's two answers. One, an actress, and two, like a OBGYN or like a doula or like something in fertility care. I think that was probably a through line for all three of us. And
Yes.
Julia, you have, not to give away your answer, but you may have like a familial reason to potentially have known about a career path in medicine. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's so both my parents are doctors. My dad's an infectious disease doctor. My mom's retired, but was a radiologist in breast imaging actually. So she did a lot of women's health stuff. So growing up, I kind of saw what their life was like, but again loved learning about psych, and I also was just so anti what my parents wanted me to do. I wanted to play soccer in college and I wanted to be a therapist, or I thought I was going to go get a PhD. Just within the psych world, it kind of became clear post grad that it's, working as a research assistant. I was like, I actually want to do this and I want to do it for me. Because I can
Yeah.
see myself loving this and really sort of giving like my life's passion to it. But it was definitely a later timeline for sure. It was, I think they maybe, I would love to ask them in the back of their mind if they were like kind of hope, like holding out hope. My brother's a football coach and my sister has a dog walking business in New Orleans. So it's like, I think that they were kind of hoping a little bit, but never put any pressure.
I remember now that you're saying that, you definitely wrestled with it. Like, I remember you being like, "Oh, like, I don't wanna just, like, be a not just be a doctor, because it's obviously
Mhm.
extremely hard to become a doctor," but I remember you not wanting to do that because
Yeah, it was.
yeah, it felt like just that classic stubbornness that we all have, I feel like, and then you're like, "Wait, that's actually, like, a sick job, and
Yeah.
it's right in front of me." Like, you're trying to find the other thing around it, like, maybe this, but not quite.
Mhm.
I feel like we all do that. We know what we want, but then we do, like, everything slightly tangential to that
Yeah.
to, not just do the thing or do the thing we don't wanna do. Like, I don't wanna do the dishes, so I'm gonna do, like, 10 things instead of that. But, okay, so how long were I guess, Julia, stick with
Mhm.
you, in the research assistant job, and what do you do in that type of job? Because, I think that's a really great entry and a common entry, it sounds like, to a path a career in medicine before you actually, like, go to med school.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those sort of stepping stone jobs. And, Boston, big health tech powerhouse. There's a bunch of research going on. Any of, take your pick of the hospitals, there's some research going on. So I think similar, like similar, I'm guessing Christina, that we essentially did the same things, but it was, patients would enroll in clinical trials, whether it was for a new medication they're trying out in people for the first time to figuring out a dose for, some sort of cancer. And basically, I kind of describe it like we were just like the workhorses that just did all of the details and enrolling patients, ordering lab work, like essentially all the stuff that made the trials happen. If that like scheduling appointments, talking to patients, scheduling their like, imaging exams and stuff like that. What was really cool about it is that you were in the clinic with patients, seeing patients as a part of the care team. We were very much in the middle of the clinic day, sort of making, people that want to come on clinical trials for whatever chance of, prolonging their life. It was a really, for me, just special to see, like, see patients go through these trials and kind of become a part of their care team was just probably what sold it for me. But it was a tough, I don't know, Christina, how do you feel about it? I feel like I don't want to say like, oh, it was like so hard, like don't do it. Like I think it's a really, really good stepping stone because, you network as well, but
Yeah.
it's not glamorous.
Yeah, well, I was gonna
Yeah.
ask, like, what are the challenges? Like, what was, like, the, ugh, part of the day?
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's not a glamorous job, but it's very informative and it was definitely rewarding in
For
its
sure.
own way. Yeah, like Julie said, it's a lot of details. So it's like, I mean, I think we had that in common for sure, Jules. Like for me, the highlight of the job was getting to know your
Mhm.
patients. You'd go to all their clinic appointments. You're making relationships with the
Yeah.
oncologists, with the other providers, seeing them. I don't know. It's just like a very vulnerable thing, and these people have a lot of hope on these
Mhm.
trials, and so you're there and you're forming that relationship, which is really special. But it's a job that requires a lot of details. So it's your job, like the FDA. Obviously, you're trying to show that this drug works or
Mhm.
whatever it is, whatever therapy. And so there's a lot of detail that needs to be involved. So you're the one like double checking everything, making sure things happen as they're supposed to happen because all these things are detailed in these very like long
Mhm.
protocols for these trials. And so like blood draws have to be at a very specific
Mhm.
time. Like meds have to be given at a very specific time. And so you're that person that's sort of like sorting through all of it. And so there is also a lot of paperwork involved with the job. And I would say, at least for me, that was challenging. I'm not the most organized person in that way. And then not to get kind of sad, but I think that was another part of the job that was hard too is these patients are pretty sick usually. So, you see them get bad news or you see them sort of decide like, hey, this has been enough for me. I want to go off of this trial. And, but you also see success stories too. So it definitely, you saw the whole spectrum of it.
Yeah, because usually when you're I don't know, but going on a trial, it's sort of last resort. It's like none of the already approved drugs are working, and so I'm now gonna try the trial. And, like, what you were saying with the details, Julia, like, it made me think of, like, you're laying the groundwork for, like, everything to run. So it's like To me, research assistant at first sounds like you're doing research like on your computer, but that's more like if you were in a
Yeah,
probably like a PhD program. This is
sure.
like
Yeah.
you are assisting the researchers who are running the clinical
Mhm.
trials. And are your hours in a job like that pretty set? You clock in, clock out type of job?
Mine yeah, yes and no. I think it was very much like an
Yeah.
8 to 5, sometimes get in there earlier, but it wasn't like you were working, like, night shifts or anything like that. It was pretty stable, but, like, I don't know, we've all been to a clinic before. Nothing runs on time. Like, it's
Yeah.
in busy
Yeah.
Boston hospitals, like, it was a volume thing too that kinda could keep us there late.
Some days we would start as early as 7 if that was the time of the patient's appointment. Because also these people, like the doctors really would sometimes, like I said, the protocols are very specific, so if they didn't have availability, it's like we'd have to make them an appointment or, like, double book them or whatever it was because it needed to happen. I don't know, we definitely it was a 40-hour job, and I definitely use quotations on that because at least in my group, we were really busy and we had a lot of trials, so I don't know, I feel like I was consistently going overtime, truthfully.
How many years in did you then decide, okay, I'm going to start studying so for those that don't know, if you do not do like a pre-med track in college or then meaning taking prerequisite classes like biology, chemistry, biochem. There's probably, I don't know how many, maybe you guys tell me. If you don't do that in college, you then have to get those requirements after college, and it's called a post-bac
Mhm.
program, like post-baccalaureate degree program. So when did you realize, like how many years in, that you need to start taking those classes?
So I think probably 6 months into the job, we were sitting in a meeting with all the doctors, and I looked at one of them and I was like, "I want that job." Like, I like what she's doing and how her days run and how she sort of comports herself. So it was, like, probably 6 months in, and then I was like, "All right, how am I gonna take these classes? Because this is, like it's Bio 1, Bio 2, chemistry, organic chemistry, biochem, physics," which was, like, the most brutal, and finding the good thing about Boston though, and I think Christina can also speak to this too, is I mean, there's schools you can take these classes any way you want, really. Like I did mine at Harvard Extension. They were night classes. I wasn't working during it. I did some like volunteering and other stuff to fill the days, but that was like what worked for me and where I was living.
Christina, how about you? Was that a similar timeline?
No, actually, I would say I decided a bit later. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, Jules definitely kind of knew more coming out of the gate. I think I really was conflicted for a while. Honestly, I worked 3 years in that research coordinator job, and I probably didn't know until like almost 2 years in. um, I definitely knew I wanted to be a provider in some capacity and go into healthcare, but I was really torn between going to medical school or going to PA school for a while. I think for two reasons. I think for me, I saw how hard the oncologists worked and how available they had to be for their patients because these people are really sick and oncologic emergencies happen all the time and they're the ones taking care of those people. And I was a little bit scared because I definitely was like, I work life balance is really important to me, or at least like having balance in some capacity, not even necessarily 50-50 split, but like, you know what I mean? Not just being married to your job. So I think that was kind of something that I was like stressed about and trying to decide between the two professions. And then I think the other thing for me was like mentally, I never felt like I was a good test taker. And so like honestly, the hoops you have to jump through to get into medical school. And then once you're in medical school, like the tests never stop. Even after medical school and residency, like as an attending, you have to take your boards. And it's just like I was very, very afraid, like wasn't sure if I could cut it at the time. So when I did decide, I was like, okay, I want to go into medicine. Also, like, sorry, just to quickly, my fiance now, Mikey, he's in residency and he also went to the Harvard Extension, the same postbac that Julia did, because for similar reasons, he was like, it was what worked for him at the time and what was best for him. For me, I was looking for something a little more like, I don't know,
I
more
think you were looking for structure.
comprehensive, I guess. Like I wanted like day classes and I wanted a place that would allow me to I needed more guidance. Like I think that's what it was. And so they were a little bit more like hands-on. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start taking because there's a lot of overlap between PA and med school classes. So I was like, let me just start and see. And I was like, if I can get through some of this, like I sort of officially 100% decided when I was in my post back that medical school was what I wanted. I think I was just like very scared of getting through those classes. But yeah.
Seriously, like, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that because this is exactly what I want people to hear. I remember that. And also, Julia, I want to double back on what you said of like when you saw the woman or the female oncologist and you're like, I want that job. The fear that rushes in and you either just don't go there because you're like the fear overcomes, or you just push through. And like I remember for both of you, very much pushed through. And I remember having multiple conversations with you, Christina, is like it did take you slightly longer to decide because the
Yeah.
fear is so real and understandably so. And I want listeners to know that like you pushed through that and now you literally like got into a top med school. Like you're going to become a doctor. Like it's amazing what you can accomplish if you just power through. And so Julia, like when you're like, I want that job, because I think we can all relate to being like, oh, I want that job, but like I could never get that job. And so you just like don't do it. And yeah, you go around the thing to see if it satisfies it. And generally it won't scratch the itch until you actually just
Yeah.
do it. So yeah, Julia, did you have like that fear rush in, or did you feel
Oh,
like given maybe your
no.
parents' background? Okay.
I grew up in a very encouraging household. My parents, if you can go do what you want to do, and if you're going to go do it well, was sort of that was just kind of how I grew up. So the fear was absolutely there. I'm not a strong test taker either. It's like kind of the bane of my existence. And it's, of course, we're going into a profession where we're going to be tested all the time. But I think the want for that outweighed, like, it got to a point where yes, I was scared, but you did it anyway. Like, feel the fear, do it anyway type stuff. And I think it really is just having like, mentors also. I think mentoring is really big in the medical world. I mean, their mentorship's important regardless, but I think I had a lot of very good mentors in like those early stages where I was like very, very nervous, just saying, nope, you can do it. Like, put your head down, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Um, and
That's
so for
awesome.
me, like that was so then this one doctor that I just looked at her, I was like, "I want your job." She just was, like, kind of a badass and, like, a badass, like, female doctor, like, we talked about our friend group being, women empowerment, but it's true, and so I think once you see somebody that you wanna emulate that does really good job at what they're doing, it, like, makes you want it even more.
And I will say too, we're all really low key competitive. Maybe I'm less low key about it, but we are like, I would say, Christina, you rank as the most low key. Like you wouldn't think you are, but you actually are extremely
No,
like,
I'm scared
yeah,
of
I'm gonna show you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where competitiveness comes from because I talk about this with Drew, my younger sister, who I would say is less competitive than me. Like, I don't think she's that competitive. And yes, sports, all three of us are athletes. And I don't know which it's the chicken or the egg, which comes first. You're competitive, so you want to play sports, but I think I have like an innate chip on my shoulder or insecurity or something that just drives me to be like, yeah, I don't know what it is that causes that, but I think it has served us all really well in our careers and it's made us who we are,
For sure.
obviously. Okay, so then you obviously you're taking these classes and then you have to start the process of applying to med
Yeah.
school. What is that process like? Oh, you have to first take the test. You
Yeah.
have to take a
Yeah.
test. What is the
Yeah.
test?
The
The MCAT.
MCAT, the medical something admissions test, I don't know.
It's like the equivalent of like the
Yeah.
SAT, like to get into medical school.
And so your score basically then determines like the likelihood of getting into certain schools, just like college.
It's a beast of a test, honestly, and I think no what's hard is that there's no real, like, comparison of, I guess, the SATs, but it's a test, like, it tests you on chem, physics, and biology, and then there's, like, a reading section or whatever, and it's 8 hours long, like, there's, like, 7 sections, it's a beast of an exam, so I ended up taking it twice. I think most people take it a couple I don't know, did you take it once, Christina, or twice?
I took it once, but yeah, I know like there's such a range. I know people have taken it once. I know people have taken it 3 times.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I do think schools have gotten better about like holistically looking at the applicant. Like I think both of us not having gone straight through from undergrad, I think actually
Yeah,
helped us because we've had work experience, life experience. I would definitely say we probably had a more padded resume than
for
like
sure.
other
Yeah.
applicants did.
Agree. Like having a couple years of experience in a hospital setting probably served you guys really well. Okay, so then you create your list of schools, and also just to double back, I think most people know this listening, but the fear of pursuing on this path is not just the tests and all that. It's also knowing it's an extreme time commitment to finally get to the end result. So I'm sure that was another hurdle for both of you and probably everyone that decides to do it. And so when you were applying to schools, were you focused on program, rank, location? Like what were your top priorities?
Yeah,
Let me
I
start
can
with you, Christina.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say also to clarify something about the process. applying to medical school, it's like a year-long process almost. Like, you take your test, you apply, and then you get these, like, secondary applications after you submit the first one, and so there's a lot of writing and, like, rewriting, and it's a whole process, and then you kind of wait, and it's almost like I don't even remember how many months of interviewing it
Mhm.
is, but it takes a while. So just like that application year, it's like that's what people call it. When it came to looking at schools, I think it was a few things. I definitely cast my net broad. I did okay on the MCAT. I didn't like knock it out of the park by any means. So there's a lot of data out there on like, average when it comes to like GPA, MCAT scores. Some of that came into play, but then also like we're both from New England. So I think I really focused on just like up and down the East Coast, just wanting to stay like as close to friends and family as possible. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, location is a big part of it. Uh, and then just kind of like looking at statistics to see if you're like a competitive applicant.
Uh, um, Same thing. I wanted to more of a homebody anyway. Staring down, like 4 years of med school, I definitely wanted to be near my family and my support system because I was, the fear of, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Like, I'm somebody who needs people. I get energized by people, so it was really important for me to be close. So I tried not to get too bogged down in the well, what's its ranking and what does this mean and what does this mean? Because it's just the end result is the same. You're going to be a doctor.
Totally.
So that's kind of how it felt.
Absolutely, and your patients aren't like, "Well, which med school did they go to?"
Right.
Even though I know it matters. Christina, you end up going to Wake Forest down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and now you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Julia, you end up going to Brown, and you are in which is in Providence, and so for med school, what was what was the most challenging aspect? Was it the classes or was it when you started rotations? What did you find to be like the more stressful component?
Third year for me was the worst year ever. So it was starting rotations. I think the amount, I mean, it is like drinking from a fire hose in your first 2 years. You're preclinical. You're just learning all this pathophysiology without seeing any patients. So you know the books, you haven't seen it in person. What's hard about third year is that you do all your rotations, OBGYN, surgery, internal medicine, you get a flavor for everything, which is really great. But every 6 weeks, it could be every week your schedule's changing. You're on the labor and delivery floor or you're, elsewhere in the hot. Like it's just you're always being evaluated too, which really was where a lot of my
Well, that's what I was
stress
gonna
came from. I
ask.
was like yeah,
Yeah, that's
the
what I was gonna ask.
evaluations
Like,
are
are you like like standing next to the doctor? Like, what is your role in the room?
you take that one, Christina.
So I think different schools are a little bit different. I know for me, definitely my program was more hands on third
Mhm.
year. If you're in a really specialized clinic, you're shadowing the doctor or like, you're taking a very basic history from a patient. But I think there's a lot of rotations where, you're expected to pick up patients, you see them, you'll help out, you'll develop skills. I mean, obviously, you're still a learner. So you're a medical student. So you're not like, you don't have the ability to prescribe
Mhm.
anything or to give them any medications. But I think the goal of third year is sort of, you get exposed to all these different core specialties. You get very comfortable talking to patients, taking their history, doing a good physical exam. And that's a skill you spend a long time learning. And then eventually the goal is to be able to kind of start putting the pieces together of like, what's my assessment of this patient? What's going on with them? What do I think is going on with them? And then what would my plan be for them? We cannot carry out the plan as a medical student. Like, really, that's done mostly by the residents and the attending. But the goal is really for us to get to that point where we come up with a plan and then we get feedback on that and we're learning as we go. And then just kind of going back, I think, to the hardest part of the process for me. I was going to say first year, actually. I think for me, every year has gotten better. And I wouldn't say it's gotten easier, but I think you do get stronger as you go through it every year. I definitely have also had my low points in third year. But third year, you feel the most like a doctor. Like you're actually seeing patients and you're like trying to envision yourself in that career, which is really cool. First year was horrible. I feel like that transition of just like the classroom setting. And I don't know, I feel like Wake Forest put us through the ringer with exams the first like 2 years. So for me, it was hard, just like the volume of info. And then not to mention, like, I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Who knows where that is, like, truthfully. And I was like, I'm not from here. I don't know anyone here. And so you're also trying to navigate, like, you're trying to make friends and like navigate the social setting of medical school, which I know sounds so silly, but like for me at that time, like I moved there alone. I'm trying to like find my people here. And so you're also navigating that while you're also in this like totally new environment and all the material is very dense and just like the pace is intense.
I remember you rented an apartment, like, you're like, "I live here now, like, do I fully decorate it because I, like, live here?" Versus
Yeah.
you didn't say this, I'm saying, like, the things that would go through my mind, like, yeah, do I, like, join a gym? Yeah, and Julia, going back to what you were saying too about the rotations and always, because at first in my head, I would have thought rotations are, like, the best part. I always think it's so funny, just, of course, different career paths. Obviously, I know being a doctor is, like, extremely challenging and stressful and being a nurse as well. But I'm like, "Oh, it'd be so sweet to just go to work in, like, scrubs and, like, walk around and, like, you're just, like, in a, like, not collegial environment, but, like, you're just very much team oriented
Oh,
and you're."
definitely.
But as you just said, like, you're being judged in the rotations, and I think, Christina, you've told me before too, attending doctors will, like, ask you a question, like, "What do you think?" really quickly, and you have to say, like, what you think, and then they disagree, you're like, "Alright." Like, obviously, and so that's a whole 'nother dynamic, and so, like, yeah, that sounds really hard, and so I guess we touched a little bit on kind of, your mindset and mental health through it all, but, like, were there.
Yeah, I think that's part of why also first year was hard for me was like self-care went so out the window. And when you're like so in that, like you don't even, you know what I mean? Like it's like you don't even register it. And then I'm like, when was the last time I worked out? Or like I'm not meal prepping or I'm not doing these like basic things that just kind of make you feel more like a person, truthfully. I didn't even know what day of the week it was because I was just like in the library studying day after day. And I like forgot one of my best friend's birthdays because I was like, oh my God, it's already this date. And I just didn't even realize. And so I was like, okay, I need to fix that ASAP. But yeah, I think for sure, like movement helped so much. Phone calls to friends, to Mikey, definitely. But truthfully, I ended up making a really good group of friends here. And thank God, because I would not have gotten through without good friends in school. And we all sort of like we didn't study like together per se. Like sometimes we did, but we always studied in the same like area. So it was sort of like, okay, even if my days were so monotonous and it was like, yep, I'd wake up at 8 and like I'd start studying by whatever, or like I'd start studying by 8 o'clock. Like I knew exactly where my friends were going to be. I knew I'd see them that day. You just kind of build your own community. And I think that that's really what gets you through.
Totally. Like,
Yeah,
Jules, how
no, I
about
mean,
you?
I honestly, I give Christina an unbelievable amount of credit to be able to go to a different place and create a community. Like, I started med school and I was like, "I'm not making friends. Nope, don't need them." Like, that was sort of my mentality, and Jack was like, "What is wrong with you? You're going to make friends. It's okay." But I very much, like, kept myself off from that. Like, in the beginning, I was like, "I have my dog and my husband, and, like, my family's here. I'm all set." But I think it is such a unique, arduous process and journey that the only people that really get it are the ones, going through it with you. So I think I have some very, very good friends that I've like lifelong friends that I know I'm gonna have forever, that have absolutely helped me through. What I realize is I don't really have hobbies, and I wish I did.
You're not.
Yep, I don't have hobbies that like fill my cup. Like watching, you know, Jane the Virgin on repeat, sure. So I think what I realized just throughout school is like I will need, especially with the time commitment that this whole thing requires, I want to, I'm challenging myself to find something that I can do that's not medicine related. Exercise, I have love hate with it. Like it's great and it helps, and sometimes I just find it like it's a chore. Um, so I'm still working on what do I do outside, that's gonna,
Yeah.
make me feel like me and also just kind of recharge as well. So I'm still working on it. Stay tuned.
Two things come to mind there. One is, yeah, the importance of communities and, like, a peer set, and I think we were so lucky in college to have each other because if you are the worst feeling in the world is, like, when you take a test and, like, you say to the person, like, next to you, like, "That was so hard," and they're like, "Oh, I thought that was really easy," and you're just like, well, first of all, even if you thought that, you shouldn't have just said that after I said that because you're obviously
But
not ever gonna be my
that's
friend. Like, that is
mean.
not someone I wanna be friends with.
Yeah.
To have that is so
Yeah.
critical because you can just feel so deeply alone if, like, you are surrounded by people that are just like, you're like, they don't get it at all. Like, and then, yeah, I was gonna say, prioritizing self-care. I think that we always hear people say, like, you need to, like a therapist or, like, prioritize your mental health or, like, prioritize, and I'm always like, "Yeah, yeah, like, there's no time for that right now. Do that later." But actually, if you really break down the word prioritize, like remembering that you're worthy of it and it's it's necessary. It is a priority. That and like setting boundaries. Like that's been something that's been huge recently for me in my job is like sometimes I forget that I'm like worthy sounds like too extreme of a word, but like of the boundary. And then I'm like, oh no, like sorry, my day is over. I'm not answering this email. Like, or, just literally making it a top priority can really change your life. And I actually think it also in business and maybe in your career path as well, like can make you a better employee because you don't stretch yourself thin and you make it very clear to people like what you will accept and what you won't accept.
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
totally.
So you are both in your fourth year of med school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's crazy.
And so I've already probably messed this up. Are you officially doctors or are you getting that this spring?
In
In
May,
May,
we'll be
we'll get
doctors
that
in May.
MD.
Hell yeah, that is so cool. And so at this point, do you have to have had decided one, the type of doctor you want to become, and two, what is your next step post May? Why don't we start with you, Christina?
Yeah. So yes, at this point of fourth year, we have had to decide what specialty we're going into. So what kind of doctor we want to be. We've already applied to residency. So that's what comes after we graduate. So yeah, so we graduate sometime in May, and then July 1st is the universal date where the new resident class, we're called interns, they start, and that's like hospitals all across the board. So that's not like region specific or anything like that. So yeah, Julia and I have both decided and we've applied, and we're both currently in the process of interviewing for residency because it's a match process. I'll let Julia talk more about the match process, but I'm going into emergency medicine. So I'm going to be an ER doc, and Julia will be going into internal medicine.
It's
Amazing.
crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The match process, this like I have a hard time explaining it too. Like it's one of the like the weirdest, most like cruel things on the planet. So basically for both of our residencies will be 3 years. And it's similar to the process of applying for med school. Like besides like all the, you have to write a personal statement, you have to update your CV, like they have your all your grades from the first 2 years of med school and your rotations and evaluations and stuff like that. So that's gets sent out to all the places that you're applying. Right now, we're doing interviews virtually. I think most places are doing virtual just since COVID. Usually, we'd be like flying all over the place to interview. So then we apply to those schools, apply, interview, and then of the ones that you interview at, you rank them. So like top choice being like, oh my gosh, I really love this program on my interview day. I got a good vibe. I think I could fit in really well there. You rank them first. Then, so you have a list of like whatever, 5 to 10 that you rank. And pretty much like anything you put on the list, like you have to be like, okay, I will be okay if I'm there. Right. Like you don't know which one you're going to get because it's the match process where it gets essentially like thrown into like a cauldron. So I think about it like a black box and then it spits out your result every March and like the week of St. Patty's Day, that Friday every fourth year student in the country finds out where they're going to go for their match, like where they matched. And those are like the crazy videos you see on TikTok of like people screaming, crying, like all the different emotions.
I was going to say for the listeners, we didn't have Greek life, but I've heard a lot of people like basically compare it to the rush process. I don't know what that's like personally, but you're meeting these programs and you're meeting the directors, and it's like, oh, do we vibe? And it's like they rank you as well, just like you're ranking that
Mhm.
program. And then whatever algorithm it is, like matches you up with a
That
program
is so
basically
crazy. That
based
is
on
Wow.
not us like in Greek life right now.
literally. I was like, I've heard that from a lot of people. I'm like,
I would have hated that.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds so intense. And if you
yeah.
don't mind me asking, obviously the time commitment of going to med school and then residency where you're not really like getting I believe a full like doctor salary. Are there like any statistics about like the cost of the student loans for med school, unless of course you got like a scholarship or but the cost of the student loans like payback period given like an average doctor salary, leave undergraduate loans out of it, like how much of a burden are the med school loans? Do you have a sense of how quickly typically people are able to pay those off?
Good question. I think there's a lot that goes I don't know what the payback period is. I think it because I mean everything's expensive. Med school's expensive, for every year here for 4 years and then, like I would think it probably takes people like 30 years to pay it. Like that's what I've heard to pay off,
Yeah.
and depending on where you went and I don't know if that's like what the stats.
And it also, it probably depends too on your investment strategy. Some people want to pay off their debt as fast as they
For sure.
can.
Yeah.
If they have a good rate, they're like, I'd rather
For sure.
pay this interest and invest my money that I'm saving from becoming. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, okay, that's a good point. Did you consider certain paths, like for you, internal medicine, for you, Christina, ER, like was pay, I don't even know what the differences are, but like was pay a
Yeah.
consideration in the choice you did, or was it solely based on interest and, passion? How about you, Christina?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that that's something that I'll talk more broadly and then I'll talk about like personally. Um, yeah, I think that that's a huge barrier to this profession and this field is med school is really expensive. And then, yeah, you come out after medical school, you're a resident, where the point of a residency is you are a licensed doctor, but you are still practicing under someone's license. So you don't have an independent license. And residents are kind of the workhorse of the hospital. They work the most hours. They're really there to just learn all there is to know and get all of the reps taking care of all these patients. Um, that's kind of like, we don't have to get in the weeds of this, but it is a little bit nuanced where like some residencies are now unionizing and different things because people work so many hours. You don't get paid. It's not like that the salary is terrible, but like the amount of money you make per hour, which they work a lot of hours, is very, very bad, especially after like doing 4 years of medical school. And then a lot of people, loans is really how people get through medicals, but that really is a big barrier. And I do think for people, that is a big factor into what they choose for a specialty. Things like pediatrics or family medicine, which are very important. There's less and less applicants going into those fields just because they get paid the least. They still get paid well, I think, is in terms of like when you're looking just salaries in general, but comparatively, they get paid a lot less. So I think for me, when that definitely was like a factor I was stressed about. I don't know, especially given the fact that like we're 31, turning 32 this year. We went to school a little bit later. Julie and I were laughing earlier because we were like, we're going on B's podcast, making a living. And in fact, we are not yet making a living, but we hope to be soon. So I think it's just like, I think for me, it was a balance. Like I knew I needed to be happy in a specialty. And that was definitely like priority. But I was looking at, okay, well, what is the average salary? For me, EM, I was like, the amount they get paid like per hour is pretty good. Like they're sort of like middle, I would say, tiered as far as like salaries go. And there's like all this like published data on like yearly salary compensation and stuff per specialty. But yeah, I do think that's a big factor for people for sure. I don't know. What do you think,
Yeah,
Julia?
I think the specialization of medical care here has created a lot of problems, I think, because so internal medicine, a general internist is like how I'm going to be trained to treat adults. That's what my residency training will do for me. But majority of people actually go on to specialize even more. So because those are lucrative specialties like cardiology, gastroenterology, experts and people that really care about this one organ. But then it leaves us where we are now, especially in Rhode Island. It's impossible to find a primary care doctor. Everyone's retiring. There's a wait list of a year. Like it's just these really like the unsung heroes of medical care are not getting the compensation that they need. And so I think when you're staring down your loans, you're like, well, yeah, I want to make as much money as as possible, even if I want to be a primary care doctor. You have to think about your financial health and your family and what kind of what you're going to need to you know survive, like, live the life that you want. So it comes into play. I think so people are lying if they say it doesn't. So I think that's kind of that's how I thought about it. It came into the picture for sure, especially I'm married, like a family down the road. Like you just start to think about, I wish it could just be, yeah, like my calling is internal medicine. And I truly do think that. I think that it's going to be a really great training for me and I'm excited about it. But I also know that it's going to pay off later.
Absolutely. Really insightful, both of you. Now, I have one last question and I would like you both to answer. You are about to embark on your final semester of med school, and it has been quite the journey. The journey's not over. I just talked about the next 3 years in residency, but how do we feel? Julia, why don't we start with you? What are your feelings that are coming up for you right now?
God, thank goodness I had therapy last week so I could talk about this because this is exactly what we talked about. She's like, "How are you feeling?" And I'm
Started crying.
yep,
Just
yep, pretty much. I was like, "Well, I don't think I can answer that without sobbing." So, no, I am ready for it to be over. I am ready to not be a med student. However, on the other side of that, that means like the responsibility is more. So I'm anxious. Let me name all my feelings. I'm anxious,
Please.
excited, almost a little like relieved. And I know that sounds weird because there's still so much unknown, but like I know I've done everything I can and to put myself in the best position to go to a really great place for residency. Like I've looking back and just talking about honestly, I haven't thought about first and second year in a while, but like we've done a lot of work. Like we have grinded our way through this. And so I'm sort of relieved that that's over, knowing that there's still work to be done. Anxious, excited, relieved.
Amazing. I'm very proud of you. And you too, Christina. How about you?
Yeah, I think similar. I know as we get closer to match day, the anxiety will kick in more. I don't think I've felt that a ton right now. I know I'll be like crashing out when it's time to like find out what like my next 3 to 4 years hold. But yeah, I think similar to Julia, I have grown a lot in medical school. It's definitely tested me in a lot of ways, but I am excited to not be a medical student. I'm just like I mentioned, my fiance is in residency now, so I have had a first row seat to what residency looks like. And it's not easy either. You know, it's kind of like that grind never stops, but I do think because it's such a marathon, like you really have to celebrate the wins as they come. So right now, I'm like, I'm a fourth year, life is good. I'm interviewing. I have a lot more time on my hands, which is very much appreciated. And yeah, I'm just excited to actually do like it feels like you're just starting to actually do what you set out to do. Like I can't wait to be a doctor this summer and to start taking care of people. And like I just have to remember that when times get hard during residency. But it's like we're finally living out our
Yeah.
dreams. So
Totally. And remind yourself too, like that not that you've said imposter syndrome, but like if that ever comes up, you did the legwork, you put in the time. Like you're more ready than anyone else, or just as. So yeah, that is amazing. And then I just want to say one more thing for anyone listening that might be considering this path. And again, the fears of like, oh, the time commitment, it's hard. Both Christina and Julia have been through major life events throughout this period. Like Julia got married, Christina's getting married in the spring. They've shown up to every bachelorette, to every friend's wedding. They've been able to travel to weekend things. They've been able to spend time with their families. So it is possible. And like, obviously, they've talked about how hard it is. And I know it's hard. I know you guys have great support systems, but you've also shown up for the people in your lives. So it is not impossible. So hopefully, as Julia said, we need more internal medicine doctors. So we need more people going into the field. Thank you for choosing this, amazing career path to help others is like the number one goal. And thank you for coming on the Make a Living
Come on,
podcast.
thanks for having us. Also, wait, a
yeah.
fun aside, since Christine and I have so much time, we're starting sourdough. We're making sourdough.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've
you
in the
are.
spirit of we've decided we're gonna start baking bread.
Oh, you gonna like do it together? Like, are you
Oh,
gonna
it's like
create?
a daily FaceTime of like
Yeah.
when we feed our starter and like we're looking
What does it look like?
like
Yeah.
what's yours? Like I named mine
Mine's Ramona. I don't know. She's giving
giving
Ramona,
Ramona. Mine's Doughy Tribbiani, mostly because I just love a pun. Anyway, but so we're finding, it's this season of like the season that we're in. We have time. Let's do it. Hobbies, but also find other things that are fulfilling besides doctor stuff.
Yes, totally.
Totally.
Reason to like call your friend. Totally. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I
Thanks,
will let
Dee.
you have a great rest of your Sunday.